Welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for October 23rd, 2024. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the agenda item, which was created in the TC repo. It's issue 1638 if people want to follow along. Before we get started, any announcements that people would like to share? Okay, no announcements this week. Just in minutes. In terms of reminders, just a reminder for people to nominate people for the Collaborator Spotlight. In terms of the CPC and board meeting updates, I don't think we have either of our reps, so I'm just going to say no updates this week. And then we will move on to the issues that were on the agenda. So the first one on the agenda was the creation of an official Discord server for the Node project. Where that's number 872, and we have two guests, Carl and Claudio, here to talk about that. So I don't know, Claudio or Carl, maybe Claudio, did you want to set? Nope, we might have just lost Claudio. Nope. Okay, so Claudio sounds like he will be back in a sec. And I think it might be good for him to set the context, and then we can get into the discussion from there. So let's just give him a minute to get back. Okay, and now he's back. Okay. Hello. Okay, so we were just going to say if you can give us the context on that one and what the what's the ask of the TC in terms of discussion, we can go from there.
I assumed that Matteo could inform TSC because he's the one that brought up this. But as some of you might know from previous conversations on the issue inside Node.js admin for the installation of an official Discord server. Initially, that got approved by the TSC, but I assume that based on what Matteo also mentioned on the CPC conversations, is that it was not clear that we wanted this to be the official server for Node.js. So certain conversations happened. For example, they are going to adopt the Node.js code of conduct. And as far as I know, the only ask here is the TSC still okay with this Discord server being the official Discord server? I don't really know any other concern because it was Matteo that said that he needed to join this meeting, but he's not
Sure,
here.
I can probably add like my 2 cents to what I think he might be getting at is like I know earlier in the discussions and when that review went through, it was kind of like we're going to somehow associate with the Discord server, allow it to be the official one in Discord, right? Like so that it gets whatever benefits that brings. But I don't think, at least to me, it wasn't as clear like it's going to be rebranded as a node, a node, like the node branding. It's going to look like, if we started up a new Discord server, that's what it's going to look like, right? Like, and we don't want to, we're not doing that because we're like, hey, there's already an existing one, but I don't think it was communicated quite to like, it will to all the external world. This will look like it comes directly from the node project, right? And
Yeah.
like that's the shift in what wasn't in the previous discussions. I think like we were all like, yeah, if we can support an existing Discord server that has lots of users, Discord's a good audience, we want to support people using Node in that space, let's do what we can. This, I think it's now become clear through the discussions that like, well, this is really going to be a Discord server which is completely it looks like the project runs it, right? And so I think that part of the Mateo's ask was to come back and make sure that everybody in the TC understands that. And then to like in that context, I think the asks are perhaps more than we would have asked before, right? Like, it's there was discussion of like, yeah, moderators should have access to be able to access and do some moderation if necessary. And I don't think anything has, like in my understanding, nothing's changed in terms of like how things will actually work. But like being
Yeah,
fully branded as the node project, it's like, you know, the project needs to have some level of, and I don't want to really say control, but like effectively, if it's branded as a node thing, as the node projects thing, I think that's what it in the end it means. Not that that means anything, people will jump in and do anything, but you know what I
right,
mean,
right. We
right?
already had those conversations on
Yeah,
CPC
exactly.
for a
And if
long period of time. I think
yeah,
that's exactly where you're going into. So, a summary from that, Carl, correct me if I'm saying anything that is not what you understand, like if I'm misaligning anything, but uh, no TSC members, if needed, will have a specific role which has certain moderation, like it has all the like permissions on Discord that are needed for them to do anything that TSC would ever need to do, to moderate or to act on that server. It will not have like ownership or full admin or like create channels or like certain things that are not really that the TSC will not really need to do, like for example creating a new channel or anything, because that's effectively like taking control over the Discord server. So that's one of the things, all the permissions that are needed for the TSC, if it happens to need to do anything, will be there. And the main code of conduct is also the same from the OpenJS Foundation, from the Node project. Uh, and that's pretty much what were the concerns, I think. And that's where we said, yeah, that's what we intend to do. Yeah.
so I'm just like writing for the notes. So like TSC members will have a level of access in terms of moderation, as will the moderation team, right? But
Right.
not owner level control, right?
No.
Right. And I can speak to some more specifics there if that's
Okay,
helpful.
sure.
Yes. So for instance, we currently have a like moderation bot to where, um, for instance, how I'm imagining this, we currently extend a level of like moderation access to the star helper role where on any message in the server, they can track it. And after they track it, they have the option to delete it. So I was imagining extending a similar level of access to the moderation team. That gives accountability for who took what action and a record of um, what messages have been removed. So if that's workable, then I think that's what I'm imagining. We could also talk about like more. There are levels of permissions between that and administrator access. So there's some gray zone in there to flex if that's not workable.
Okay. So is
In other
anybody
words, anything that is needed ad hoc can be discussed in the future, as it goes, as it proceeds, I guess. That's what you're saying, Carl?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
right? Yeah, I think like the main difference between any of the other things is like pretty much the TSC today has like owner control of everything, like the GitHub repos, and again, most of the time the TSC members don't do anything with that, but like they have the ability to do whatever if necessary, right? And that would be the one difference in this case from all the other project assets. Um, so anybody else have questions, concerns they want to just bring up, or like since we have Carl and Claudio, this is a great time to sort of say if you have thoughts. No, if not, I guess like in terms of next action, I can send, I'll take the action to send an email to the full TSC since we don't have all the TSC members here. Just to try and close on the, hey, do we have consensus? Or are there any concerns? I think with the main and the main things I'll put in there is like, yeah, it's going to be fully branded as a node resource. And really the main thing is like, the level of access will be this moderation level access and no more than that, right? And then we'll see if anybody has any concerns with moving forward with that.
I'm happy to send a little snippet of like, here's exactly what it would look like each step of the way. Sort of like, I could turn that into a handbook later, make a resource available, but just to go, I can help get clarity when communicating this out.
Okay. I guess the question, like, in terms of backup, we often have like the TSC. There's the discussions at the OpenJS Foundation, which I'll bring into this a little bit. But like for projects, for smaller projects, they ask us often like, can somebody from the Linux Foundation or the OpenJS Foundation be added, one of the staff, so that like the project disappears, there's a backup. In the context of Node, we've said like, well, the TSC members are basically, we've got 20 of them. They're not all going to disappear. We don't need a backup. And like, it's up to the project to decide that. So my question in that context, is there any sort of form of backup for you, Carl, in this context? If you won the lottery and just went crazy,
Yeah.
is there somebody else who has access or something like that? And
Um, there has been in the past. I think I've actually had to walk that back because they disappeared.
right, sure,
Um,
yeah.
I believe we don't currently have a backup for someone with my level of access, but that's
Right.
something I can definitely change.
Right. What would it be like? Would you be open to say if we just, as opposed to like the whole TSC, we said like, let's have the TSC delegate one person that that would have the full privileges to do whatever just as a backup or
Yep, that works for me. I've
okay.
talked with Claudio a lot. I think that we've sort of gone in the direction of that could be Claudio's role here.
Okay.
I'm open to that, yeah.
To be fair, I would never touch anything.
Right.
I'm
Yeah, no,
afraid
I
of breaking
understood. Yeah.
anything. Like I'm so afraid of breaking things. Last time I tried to create a Discord server on a Discord board, but I kind of crashed my Discord because the bot would pause non-stop. So I just like, fuck this, it's too complicated for me. That was like 7 years ago.
Okay. So yeah, I'll add that into the like that as part of the equation. So I think that that answers the one question I had there. So Carl, if you want to put that together, like the little description, send that to me, then I'll send out the email and like, I think then we can say if we don't hear any complaints within, some number of days, maybe a week, we'll say, yep, we're good to go. Okay, sounds good. Um, okay, so I'm just gonna put these in, Carl to send description, TSC access. Um, okay, so let's move on to the next issue then. The next one is module add module strip types. I think last time it was mentioned that that one was on as an FYI, and that discussion, just there's an FYI, it might not come to consensus in the issue itself. I'm just taking a look to see if there's been too much discussion there. I don't see any blocking issue. I don't see anybody blocking the issue right now, and I see a bunch of approvals. So I'm not, unless somebody else knows that there's something we should discuss. It looks to me like it's moving forward and may land. So, in fact, I think like maybe it looks like it's moving forward, and we could remove the agenda item for it. I'm just going to put that as nobody has any concerns. I'm going to say looks it's moving forward. Moving to the agenda. I label today's meeting. Please something that TSC needs to discuss. And commenting on that. Sorry, just give me one more sec. Okay, the next one is module win, make module cast case and sex insensitive. This is number 54478. I'm not sure who added it, but I'll take a look. If anybody is here who added it, please jump in and lead the discussion.
Mateo added it
Okay.
because I had some opinions about how it was done because you only modified the CommonJS module cache, but didn't actually change the resolution. So you'll still have inconsistent like module path resolution results. So for example, if you require the resolve, or if you check the __ file name, they are not going to be consistent with the module cache keys. And it's also only CommonJS. So the ESN is also not going to be consistent. It's not going to have the path, the resolution path, lowercase.
Okay.
And then also the implementation uses string prototype to lowercase, which is probably not consistent with how Windows treat case sensitiveness in path. I don't think it actually uses Unicode. The JavaScript one uses Unicode. So I think that one needs more work. Because
Yeah,
there
I
are
agree.
inconsistencies.
I agree that I don't really think we should keep it for as a TSC topic at the moment. I think like I would also block the current implementation, as it is also possible to change case insensitivity on Windows. That's also not clarified how this would work. And like there were not a lot of comments, so yeah. I would suggest to just remove the label and adding a few more comments.
Okay, so we could add the comment that says discussed in today's TSC meeting, consensus seemed to be consensus of those present was a smaller number. Does anybody else speak out if this is overstating the consensus? But like consensus of those present was that it does need more work to make the treatment of case more consistent across the different aspects, and that includes like ESM. What was Joey? You mentioned a few. It was like it wouldn't apply to
The one is how Windows actually treat case sensitiveness. It's not actually Unicode, I don't think, or at least according to the internet.
right. So yeah, and Windows treats case sensitivity. So you're saying those like ASM, you said like if you did lookups of some sort, what were those lookups?
The lookup, do you mean the
Like you're saying if it only affected the cache,
yeah,
the
the
CTS
module
cache, but like if you looked
CommonJS
up,
module cache.
but if you looked up the name or something, you would get the non-case insensitive one, right?
Yes, if you invoke the resolution functions that we provide, or there are, the various places where we expose the resolved file name, they are not going to be consistent with what's in the module cache key.
Okay.
Some of them are lowercase, some of them are not.
Okay. So basically, I was saying discussed in today's meeting consensus of those present with smaller number 7 was that it does need, oops, I don't know how I always get the extra word, does need more work to make the treatment of case more consistent across the different aspects as mentioned by Joey. ASM invoking resolution functions or looking at resolved file name and how Windows treats case insensitivity before it should land. Is that fair? Everybody okay with me sort of banding us together in that comment? Okay, if so, I'm going to close the I'm going to comment and I'm going to remove it from the TSC agenda for now. Okay. So moving on. The draft statement of work. So this is number 1629. I opened this and after based on, it was a number of weeks ago, we discussed the test flakiness and potentially looking to get a resource that we would hire to work on that. I put together a draft statement of work. Joey had some comments. Thank you very much for that. I see we have maybe 3 other TSC members. I guess the question is, are we ready to move forward with this? In terms of what's written there. Anybody here have any concerns or questions on that?
I don't have a concern. I just have an observation. I mean, given when you said we are trying to hire somebody externally, looking at the success criteria, reduce the number of tests, more CI runs, and spending more time on the flakiness. Is it worthwhile to define in a conservative way to be able to say that the test cases that it is supposed to test the scenarios shouldn't be suppressed in some way? I mean, there is a way to reduce the flakiness just by deciding not to test that specific aspect. But there is a reason why the test case exists. So
Right.
the flakiness reduction should make sure that the intended functionality is tested correctly.
What if I add and maintain good test coverage?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, some clause around that.
Okay. Yeah, I just added to like success looks like now. The first one is like maintain good test coverage. While doing that, reduce the number of tests just likely in the status files, more CI runs that pass on the first run, and the critical mass of collaborators dedicated timing to address the flaking test.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I don't mean any ill will or anything, but we had been to the conversation around, I mean, the paid work, I
Yep.
mean, could be used to game the system or whatever way, things like that. So that being a conservative, having a conservative clause there makes sense, helps, I guess.
Yeah, it's good to set the frame. Joey, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just saw in the success part there is a more CI runs that pass on the first one. I think that can be changed to the daily master CI should be, should pass more frequently instead of testing CI, because testing CI can have their own problems. Whereas the master daily CI is like a better indicator of whether the master is, where the main branch is actually doing okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna change that to the daily master CI passes on the first run more often.
Or maybe like, I don't know how to frame it, but like, if you run it doesn't need to be daily, but like if you run the main CI, the CI on main branch multiple times is like how frequent it is green, instead of the main branch CI is actually failing. More like a higher green rate of the main branch.
Right. Said running the
main
CI
branch
in the
passing this.
running the CI on the main branch will pass more often.
Yeah, we might need to think a bit more about what you mean by CI, because that's quite vague. So we do have a CI job specifically that runs every day. That's not passed in months. So if you're going to use that as criteria, well, that's it's a noble thing to aim for. But I mean, it's not in a state at the moment where it passes at all. So that that's a would be an interesting thing to decide on.
How about running the test pull request job on the
Well, it
main
wouldn't be test pull
branch?
request if you didn't have a
Pass
pull
pro.
request. It could be test commit. But I'm just saying that just saying CI is too broad. I think we might need to identify the actual CI run that we would be expecting people to look at, or this person to look at.
Yeah, I guess just no test commit on the main branch.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that sounds reasonable.
Test commit. So running no test commit so on the main branch will pass more often, right?
Yep.
Hopefully always. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so I think that one, I'll say, like, again, it's been open in the public issue. We haven't had any concerns. I think I'll send, an email to the TSC saying, like, unless we hear any in the next few days, we'll consider that this is like agreed and we're going to move forward.
I guess one thing that's I've just thought of is if we're expecting them to check like CI results, are we expecting them to be able to run them? Because that might imply that we would need to give whoever is successful access, depending on whether they're someone we already know or if they're new, then that might complicate things in terms of access to the CI. I mean, you could read it, but if we're expecting them to run it, that might be something we need to think about.
Sure, but I think anybody we'd be comfortable bringing on to do this, we should also be comfortable giving that ability to run the CI. So I don't
Yeah.
think it will actually be a problem, right? It is something we'd have to figure out, but I don't
Mhm.
think if we're like, yeah, we're gonna trust them to do this work, we should trust them to run that as well.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is let's talk about the CI situation. I don't know if there's anything new to talk about on that one. We just talked about the one issue we have, which is a concrete next action on that front. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to dive into on that. Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next one, the ambassador program. So message and topics for additional content. We are starting, I opened this one, so I'll dive into it. We are starting to onboard a couple of the first ambassadors. And part of the program, we outlined that we would come together as a project and define some topics that we would like the ambassadors to focus on. So I was hoping that, like, at least to get this on the TSC members radar. I did mention last week, but like want to make sure people are thinking about this and maybe even have a bit of a discussion on, like, right now, what do we think the highest value topics for content or for helping people understand what the project is doing or getting the message out about the good work, or what kind of things would most benefit the project at this point. And I don't know if anybody has any ideas they want to throw out there. We could have spend a few minutes discussing that. Okay, I don't hear any suggestions now, but I will just leave it on as we start to get the discussion. Maybe we can think about it, and if there are any, please add it to add them to the issues. I will then go over to the strategic initiatives. Oops. In the right place. Joey, anything you want to add on startups?
There were some updates on the handling of error stack trace limit in snapshots. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else to add. Oh,
Okay.
and there's also the migration of snapshot creator for the VA 13 upgrade that I've been working on. I'll paste the links to the chat.
Okay. Sounds good. On the next 10 front, I already mentioned we're onboarding the first couple of initial ambassadors. And we're also digesting the results of the collaborator summit, of the collaborator survey, which we will discuss at the summit, the upcoming summit. And I think that takes us to the end of the strategic initiatives where we have the champion here. So at this point, anything else we should discuss before we close out to the private session? Okay, if not, thanks to everybody who's been participating and those on the live stream. We'll see you next time.